When we talk about love, desire is often the first thing that comes to mind. Desire is immediate, electric, and undeniably compelling. It grabs attention, quickens the pulse, and colors our perception of someone else in ways that feel urgent and real. Desire is, in many ways, the engine of human attraction. It propels us toward connection, toward seeking, toward longing. But desire, as powerful as it is not synonymous with love. Desire is often short-lived, fleeting, and reactive, whereas genuine love requires something far deeper. A conscious, sustained commitment to understanding, nurturing, and valuing another person beyond the initial spark. The human mind is exquisitely attuned to novelty and reward. Neurochemically, desire is reinforced by dopamine, the same chemical that drives our pursuit of pleasures, achievements, and thrills. When we feel drawn to someone, when the world seems to light up at their presence, it is our brain recognizing the promise of reward. This is natural, biological, and not inherently negative. Desire plays a role in bringing people together, in signaling attraction and compatibility. Yet it is precisely because desire is rooted in short-term reward that it can be misleading. We often mistake the intensity of wanting someone for the depth of loving them, and therein lies the trap. In love, by contrast, is not an instantaneous feeling. It is a sustained orientation toward another person. Love is characterized by empathy, patience, and the willingness to see the other as a separate, autonomous being with their own needs, fears, and complexities. Where desire seeks fulfillment primarily in the self, the pleasure, the excitement, the emotional gratification, love is outward-facing. Love prioritizes the well-being and growth of the other person alongside, or even above one's own impulses. In this way, love can endure the ordinary, the mundane, and even the challenges of life in a way that desire alone cannot. Desire may spark the flame, but love is what keeps it burning steadily. The philosophical distinction between desire and love has deep implications for human relationships. Desire is fundamentally conditional. It depends on the presence of attraction, novelty, or stimulation. Love, however, is intentional and unconditional in its orientation. It is a choice to remain present, to engage, and to invest emotionally, even when passion wanes or external circumstances shift. Consider how easily desire fades when familiarity sets in or when imperfections are revealed. Genuine love, however, can embrace imperfection. It recognizes that the person we choose to love is not a projection of our ideal, but a living human being. The wisdom of love lies in the capacity to care for someone fully, not just for the pleasurable reflections of ourselves that they provide. Psychologically, confusion between desire and love can lead to repeated mistakes in relationships. Many people enter partnerships thinking that intense attraction equates to compatibility or lasting connection. They interpret the thrill of desire as proof that the relationship is meaningful. Yet when desire naturally ebbs, and it inevitably does, they are left wondering if love has disappeared entirely, not realizing that love is less about the intensity of feeling and more about the consistency of action. Showing up, communicating openly, addressing conflict constructively, and offering support even in moments of boredom, disagreement, or hardship. These acts, though often less glamorous than desire, are the true markers of enduring love. Furthermore, desire is not inherently negative. It is a signal, a form of information. It tells us who we are drawn to, what qualities we admire, and where we might find fulfillment. The challenge is in recognizing desire for what it is and not confusing it with the more profound, deliberate, and sometimes challenging work of love. Desire motivates attention and curiosity, but love requires reflection, restraint, and a commitment to see beyond immediate gratification. The moment we begin to distinguish these two forces, we gain clarity in our relationships. We can pursue attraction consciously while simultaneously investing in the deeper dimensions of care, respect, and emotional intimacy. In practical terms, cultivating love over desire involves awareness and intentionality. It demands asking difficult, are we together because of the depth of our connection or the thrill of being wanted? Do we invest in each other's growth even when it requires effort and discomfort? Are we willing to stay when desire fades, knowing that love persists through commitment, understanding, and shared purpose? These questions are uncomfortable precisely because love is not effortless. Desire can be spontaneous, but love is chosen, practiced, and reinforced through action over time. To integrate this understanding into our lives, we must treat desire as the doorway, not the destination. Desire brings us together, but love is what sustains us. It is easy to confuse intensity with depth, urgency with meaning, or infatuation with devotion. Recognizing this distinction allows us to approach relationships with clarity, avoid fleeting mistakes, and invest in connections that truly nurture growth and intimacy. It invites us to slow down, to observe, and to commit, knowing that the most profound bonds are not born from impulse alone, but from deliberate care, patience, and the courage to love deeply over time. So the next time you feel swept away by desire, pause and reflect. Acknowledge the intensity, but ask yourself, is this desire guiding me toward fleeting pleasure, or is it pointing me toward a deeper, more enduring love? Desire may light the fire, but love is the flame that must be tended, protected, and nourished. In learning between these forces, we do more than safeguard our relationships. We cultivate the capacity to love fully, wisely, and courageously, building connections that endure far beyond the momentary pull of attraction.
Humans are relational creatures. From the moment we are born, the way we connect or fail to connect with others shapes our sense of security, our expectations of intimacy, and ultimately, how we navigate love throughout our lives. Attachment is the invisible architecture of our relationships, the psychological framework that guides how we give and receive affection, trust, and attention. Understanding attachment is crucial because it illuminates why we form certain patterns in love, why some relationships flourish, and why others falter despite desire or effort. Psychologists have identified several primary attachment styles: secure, anxious, and avoidant, with combinations and variations in between. Each style is formed early in life, influenced by the reliability, responsiveness, and emotional availability of caregivers. But these early experiences they serve as a lens through which we interpret intimacy, rejection, and connection as adults. Recognizing our attachment style allows us to see patterns in our behavior and relationships, giving us the power to respond consciously rather than react unconsciously. Secure attachment style is characterized by comfort with intimacy, trust in the availability of others, and the ability to balance closeness with autonomy. People with secure attachment are generally confident in their capacity to give and receive love. They are capable of emotional regulation, open communication, and empathy, which are essential for sustaining deep, enduring relationships. In romantic partnerships, secure individuals can navigate conflict without fear of abandonment, maintain healthy boundaries, and invest emotionally without losing themselves in the process. This style models the healthiest form of relational engagement, one in which desire and love can coexist and deepen over time. In contrast, anxious attachment manifests as a heightened sensitivity to perceived rejection or abandonment. Individuals with this style often crave closeness, but fear that it will not be reciprocated. They may seek constant reassurance, interpret neutral behaviors as signs of disengagement, and experience intense emotional highs and lows in response to relational cues. While desire may be strong and love deeply felt, anxious attachment can lead to patterns of dependency, jealousy, and overinvestment, which paradoxically can push partners away. Understanding this tendency allows individuals to recognize their fears and consciously cultivate self-soothing strategies, emotional regulation, and healthier communication. Avoidant attachment, on the other hand, is characterized by a discomfort with intimacy and a tendency to prioritize independence over connection. Avoidantly attached individuals often suppress or dismiss their own needs for closeness and may struggle to empathize with the emotional needs of their partners. They may be perceived as distant, unresponsive, or emotionally unavailable, even when desire is present. In relationships, this style can create cycles of push and pull, where intimacy triggers discomfort and withdrawal generates anxiety in the partner. Awareness of this pattern allows avoidant individuals to practice vulnerability, deliberately understanding that emotional closeness is not a threat, but a choice that can be embraced gradually. The interplay between attachment styles within a relationship profoundly influences how desire, love, and connection are experienced. For example, a partnership between an anxious and an avoidant partner can create a feedback loop of pursuit and withdrawal, often misunderstood. In reality, these patterns are rooted in deeply ingrained attachment tendencies, not the absence of love or desire. Recognizing the dynamics at play allows partners to step outside the reactive cycle, communicate needs clearly, and cultivate empathy for one another's vulnerabilities. Thus, the transformative power of this awareness lies in its ability to replace unconscious patterns with conscious choice, turning habitual friction into opportunities for relational growth. Beyond personal insight, understanding attachment styles provides practical tools for nurturing lasting love. Secure attachment can be modeled and cultivated through consistent behavior, emotional honesty, and the intentional reinforcement of safety within the relationship. Individuals with anxious or avoidant tendencies can learn to regulate their emotions, establish and respect boundaries, and engage in transparent dialogue about fears and desires. In every case, attachment awareness encourages patience, empathy, and deliberate practice, allowing desire to be harmonized with deep, enduring love rather than undermining it. The implications extend even further when considering the lifespan of a relationship. Desire may ignite interest, but attachment determines sustainability. Those with secure attachment can maintain intimacy and passion through life's stresses because their emotional foundation is stable. Those with insecure attachment may struggle to translate desire into lasting love because fear, avoidance, or dependency distorts the way intimacy is expressed. Awareness of these tendencies provides a roadmap for growth, turning psychological insight into actionable strategies that strengthen connection, trust, and emotional resilience. Ultimately, attachment is not destiny. It is a framework, a set of habits and patterns that can be observed, understood, and reshaped. By recognizing our own attachment style and the dynamics it creates in our relationships, we gain agency over how desire is channeled, how love is expressed, and how intimacy is cultivated. The practice of this awareness transforms relationships from reactive entanglements into conscious partnerships, where both individuals are empowered to meet their own needs while supporting the growth and fulfillment of the other. The lesson is clear. Understanding attachment is not a theoretical exercise. It is a practical tool for mastering the art of connection. Desire without awareness can be fleeting. Love without understanding can falter. And attachment without reflection can trap us in patterns of anxiety or avoidance. By cultivating insight, empathy, and deliberate engagement, we create relationships where desire sparks meaningful connection, love deepens over time, and attachment becomes a bridge rather than a barrier to intimacy. When we think about love, we often focus on desire, passion, or even commitment, but there is another layer that is less discussed yet fundamentally crucial: emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is the capacity to understand, manage, and respond effectively to our own emotions, while perceiving and empathizing with the emotions of others. In the context of love, emotional intelligence acts as a bridge between fleeting desire and enduring connection. It allows us to navigate the complexities of attachment, intimacy, and relational growth with awareness and skill, transforming relationships from reactive patterns into intentional partnerships. At its core, emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness. To love effectively, we must first understand our own emotional landscape, what triggers us, what brings us joy, what insecurities lie beneath the surface, and how our moods influence our actions. Without this self-awareness, desire can easily be mistaken for love. Jealousy can masquerade as concern, and anger can be projected onto the person we care about most. Self-awareness allows us to distinguish between impulses and intentional actions, to recognize when our emotions are clouding judgment, and to choose responses that foster intimacy rather than erode it. But emotional intelligence extends beyond understanding ourselves. It encompasses the ability to empathize with our partner. Empathy is the cornerstone of emotional intimacy. It allows us to perceive not only the words our partner speaks, but the emotions that underlie them, the subtle expressions of fear, longing, or vulnerability. In relationships, emotional intelligence enables us to respond thoughtfully rather than reactively, to offer comfort without judgment, and to validate our partner's experience even when it differs from our own. This skill is especially important when desire or passion creates tension, as it allows both partners to remain connected through conflict rather than being driven apart by misunderstanding. A critical aspect of emotional intelligence in love is regulation. The ability to manage our own emotions in service of the relationship. Desire, excitement, and passion are powerful forces, but unchecked, they can also fuel impulsivity, insecurity, or possessiveness. Emotional regulation allows us to temper these impulses, ensuring that our actions align with our values and intentions rather than fleeting emotional surges. For example, instead of lashing out in jealousy or withdrawing in fear, emotionally intelligent partners pause, reflect, and communicate in ways that preserve connection. In this way, emotional regulation transforms volatile moments into opportunities for trust building and deeper understanding. Okay? Communication is another domain where emotional intelligence demonstrates its transformative power. Love is sustained not just by shared experiences or mutual attraction, but by the ability to convey feelings, needs, and concerns with clarity and empathy. Emotional intelligence enables us to express our desires without demanding, to assert boundaries without blame, and to listen actively rather than defensively. This creates a relational environment where both partners feel seen, heard, and valued, reinforcing the bonds of trust and intimacy. Alone cannot achieve this without emotional intelligence. Even the strongest attraction can falter under the weight of miscommunication or unaddressed emotional needs. Furthermore, emotional intelligence allows us to navigate relational challenges with resilience. Love is rarely smooth or effortless. Conflicts arise, expectations clash, and personal insecurities surface. In these moments, the capacity to recognize emotions, both our own and our partners, becomes critical. By naming feelings, understanding their origins, and responding with intention, couples can transform conflict into growth. Emotional intelligence shifts relationships from reactive cycles of blame and resentment into collaborative spaces where both partners can learn, adapt, and deepen their connection. It is also important to recognize that emotional intelligence is a skill, not an innate trait. It can be cultivated through reflection, practice, and conscious effort. Mindfulness practices, journaling, therapy, or deliberate relational exercises can enhance self-awareness, empathy, and emotional regulation. As individuals develop these skills, their capacity for love expands. Desire becomes more than a momentary spark. It becomes a channel through which care, understanding, and commitment are expressed. Attachment patterns, whether anxious or avoidant, are moderated by the ability to recognize and respond to emotional cues, creating more secure bonds. In practical terms, emotionally intelligent love transforms relationships into partnerships where both individuals are actively engaged in nurturing connection. It allows partners to navigate the ebb and flow of desire, the challenges of attachment, and the complexities of personal growth without losing sight of the relationship. Emotional intelligence turns love into an active practice rather than a passive experience, requiring attention, reflection, and consistent care. When both partners cultivate this skill, desire is harmonized with empathy, love is strengthened by understanding, and attachment becomes a secure foundation rather than a source of anxiety. Ultimately, the role of emotional intelligence in love cannot be overstated. It is the engine that converts the raw energy of desire into the enduring force of genuine connection. It is the skill set that allows us to navigate the inevitable complexities of intimacy, attachment, and human imperfection. And it is the framework through which we can sustain love over time, transforming attraction into commitment, longing into empathy, and fleeting passion into a bond that grows stronger with each challenge faced together. One of the paradoxes of human love is that it demands two seemingly contradictory things. At the same time, freedom and connection, we long for intimacy, for the warmth of being known and understood by another, yet we also long for independence, for the ability to define ourselves, to explore, to remain sovereign individuals. The tension between these two desires lies at the very heart of relationships. If love becomes too enmeshed, we lose ourselves in the other, and the relationship collapses under the weight of dependency. If love becomes too detached, intimacy erodes, and we drift apart. The art of sustaining meaningful love lies in striking the delicate balance between freedom and connection. This paradox is not a flaw in love. It is its very structure. Human beings are not built to merge completely, nor are we designed to remain isolated. The healthiest relationships are those that allow individuals to grow both together and apart, to share deeply without erasing individuality. Connection provides security, but freedom provides vitality. A relationship without freedom stagnates, while one without connection disintegrates, Philosophically, this balance reflects one of the oldest dilemmas of human existence: the tension between individuality and belonging. To belong is to feel safe, anchored, and part of something greater than oneself. So, to be free is to remain authentic, autonomous, and capable of pursuing personal meaning. When these forces are harmonized, relationships become fertile grounds for growth, not prisons of obligation. But when one dominates the other, dysfunction follows. Excessive freedom can feel like neglect or abandonment. Excessive connection can feel like suffocation or control. Both extremes undermine the very essence of love. From a psychological perspective, this balance is also deeply connected to attachment styles. Anxiously attached individuals often fear freedom, equating it with rejection. Avoidantly attached individuals often fear connection, equating it with loss of independence. Securely attached individuals, however, embody the balance. They can embrace closeness without losing their individuality and enjoy independence without jeopardizing intimacy. In this sense, cultivating secure attachment is not merely about safety. It is about mastering the paradox of freedom and connection. But how do we achieve this balance in practice? The first step is clarity of value. Each individual must ask, what does freedom mean to me, and what does connection mean to me? Without defining these terms, partners risk projecting assumptions onto each other, leading to conflict. For some, freedom may mean time alone to recharge or space to pursue personal ambitions. For others, freedom may mean the ability to express opinions honestly without fear of judgment. Similarly, connection may mean physical closeness, shared rituals, or emotional disclosure. By articulating these needs openly, couples can begin the process of negotiating boundaries that honor both freedom and connection. The second step is intentional communication. Balancing freedom and connection is not a static achievement, but a dynamic process. As individuals grow, their needs shift. What felt like connection last year may feel like control today. What felt like freedom at the start may feel like distance later on. Emotional intelligence becomes crucial here. Couples must develop the courage to voice their changing needs without accusation, and the humility to listen without defensiveness. The balance is maintained not through rigid rules, but through ongoing dialogue, rooted in trust and respect. Another practical tool is the cultivation of shared purpose alongside individual purpose. Relationships thrive when both partners pursue their own growth while also nurturing a collective vision. Shared projects, whether raising a family, building a home, or simply committing to shared values, provide connection that is not suffocating because it does not erase individuality. Simultaneously, encouraging each partner to pursue personal goals, friendships, or creative endeavors preserves freedom without threatening the bond. This dual orientation towards self and toward the relationship creates a resilient dynamic where both partners can flourish.
Yet, we must acknowledge that balance is not always symmetrical. There will be seasons where one partner needs more freedom, perhaps to explore a career path or personal struggle, while the other needs more connection, perhaps due to stress or vulnerability. The strength of a relationship lies not in perfect equilibrium at all times, but in flexibility, the ability to bend without breaking, to adjust without resentment, and to support without losing oneself. The spiritual dimension of this balance cannot be ignored either. Love is at its essence the recognition of another as both deeply connected to us and profoundly separate from us. To truly love someone is to honor their freedom even when it challenges our comfort, and to embrace connection even when it demands vulnerability. It is to hold the paradox without trying to resolve it, to see freedom and connection not as opposites but as complements. True love is not about erasing boundaries, it is about respecting them while still choosing intimacy. Ultimately, the balance between freedom and connection is not a fixed destination, but an ongoing dance. It requires patience, awareness, and courage. It demands that we resist the temptation to cling when we feel insecure or to withdraw when we feel overwhelmed. It calls for maturity, the capacity to hold two truths at once. I need you, and I am still myself. I love you, and I am free. The beauty of this balance is that when achieved, it creates the conditions for desire, attachment, and emotional intelligence to flourish together. Desire remains alive because freedom allows novelty and individuality to thrive. Attachment deepens because connection fosters safety and emotional intelligence bridges the two, ensuring that the relationship adapts to change without unraveling. In this way, balancing freedom and connection is not just a skill, but the foundation for love that endures across time, challenge, and transformation.